Your narrator's back. So, so, surprised me too. They ran a segment with commentators about legalizing marijuana, and these are they're short segments, and not everyone's home watching these things. So what and the it was one thing was mentioned makes perfect sense, but um, you narrated and I didn't know this was official. It was actually happening. It makes perfect logical sense, but we could. My understanding. Well, here's the thing. Well, one of the gentlemen said that he said listen, um, he said prohibition of marijuana. He said, look, He said Uruguay. Apparently, this makes perfect sense. I never thought of it, of course. Uruguay has taught. Unless I'm catching it wrong. There's such short segments that Uruguay has told the United Nations that it can no longer hold. It can no longer hold up to its human rights obligations if cannabis if marijuana is also illegal. That's what I we believe we heard him say, and I was to explain what someone might not wonder what would that mean. My understanding, I mean, I want to look at the specifics, but if caught the statement correctly, right? Here's the thing: do we mention the free trade agreements? These free trade agreements that are only beneficial to transnationals and cause mass starvation all over South America. What South America has been asking constantly asking the World Trade Organization and those who have a can have a really have a say there, that is our country, but to please allow commodity stabilization programs, which they won't do. The reason for that is this: um, when this transnational well, this is one specific thing, but it happens in other ways too. But this transnational, gigantic state subsidized agro businesses that's based here but has offices all around the world. What the free trade agreements are doing, and it looks like they're passing another one that they call it, some refer to as NAFTA on steroids. Um, but this you said, but it's have to do we're getting to something. What does it have to do with marijuana? Um, the point is this: they've been asking for commodity stabilization programs, okay? Because the reason that millions of people in South America are dying or starving to death, okay, is the following: they can, when they're not allowed to close their markets, when their markets are busted wide open by these trade agreements, and a massive state subsidized agribusiness can flood in um, um, extremely cheap and um, agricultural products, because they're subsidized. It's state subsidized. We have it. It's located here. Cheap agro products are flooded into the market, and all the local farmers um, can't compete with a giant transnational state subsidized agro industry. They lose their livelihood, and the urban parts, the urban areas don't certainly don't have enough work to for millions of people can't just relocate to a small city or something and lose, so they end up starving. But they asked for what would stop that is commodity stabilization programs, because the main thing is if like for example, if one of our if the one this is part of this free trade thing, that when markets for agro products fluctuate wildly as they do, If you're a giant like state, transnational agricultural business, it doesn't really matter if the market fluctuates. The price for things goes up and down on the market. But if you're a small farmer in South America, you can't tell your family like, well, we're just not going to eat this year. We'll wait till next year. Maybe the market will spike back. I mean, they can't handle fluctuations in the market the way a massive transnational state subsidized agribusiness we have here can. And so their only choice is to grow things for which there still is a stable market, for which is like things like marijuana. The problem is that when they go to growing marijuana, part of our like drug policy, which is really kind of like a cover for it's a cover for like sort of counterinsurgency against. It's kind of a cover or something, but the point is this: why we claim that what's called source country control, that is like controlling like the flow of drugs into our country by getting it at its source, which involves like black helicopters like fumigating where they're growing anything that is illegal, and killing those that are growing them. That's like source country control. That's where they that's why they have no choice but to go into growing something for which there is a stable market, because the World Trade Organization won't allow commodity stabilization programs. But because our policy, that's why we build military bases there. If they go into the hills to grow cocoa or poppy or something like that, they just get gunned to death by black helicopters. That's part of why we have bases over there. The point is this: like he said, right? That's what I did. That's the problem. That's why peasant farmers are like having to go grow things and then importing it into our country, like marijuana and other things. Right. So apparently Uruguay told the if I that told the it's interesting the told the UN they can't live up to the human rights obligations if cannabis is illegal. If I heard him correctly, that's really a dimension of it I hadn't thought about. But that makes perfect sense, right? Did I get that right? I think that's what he meant. And I'm talking it out. I'm not sure. No, that has to be what he meant. Maybe try that again. I'll go Google that so I do this better. But that's just a mouthful because that statement, it was made very fast, but I think I caught it correctly. But oh, right. That's right. Because it's illegal here. Oh, okay, all right. It's illegal here, and that's why we have the bases. And right. And then they use their military to go. Okay, I get it. That makes perfect sense. Right. The regimes there. Right. I guess. Right, the human rights abuses against like the peasant farmers who then go into growing things like marijuana because they can't grow anything else because we busted open their market with the free trade agreements and are flooding cheap agro products in, and they don't want their families to starve, and they're not allowed commodity stabilization programs. That makes perfect sense. But let me Google it.